Welcome back to the deep dive. Usually when we pull a book off the shelf to talk about relationships, we're looking at things like, attachment theory, active listening.
Right, how to navigate conflict with empathy. The standard stuff.
Exactly, the standard toolkit. We're usually asking, how can we understand each other better? But today we're looking at a text that essentially argues understanding is overrated, and that authority is what's really missing.
Yeah, this is a very different kind of book.
It is. We were doing a deep dive into How to Get and Keep a Wife by Coach De Bruyns. And I think we need to set the stage here because this is not your typical self-help guide.
No, not at all. I mean, if most relationship books are about building a democracy of two, this book is, well, it's a manual for establishing a benevolent dictatorship.
That's a good way to put it.
It's a reconstruction of marriage based on what he calls patriarchal norms. And it draws on this really complex mix of evolutionary psychology, certain religious texts, and what's often called red pill philosophy.
Okay, let's pause on that term for a second. Red pill. We hear it thrown around a lot online. In the context of this book, what are we actually talking about?
So it comes from the Matrix, obviously. You take the pill to see the harsh reality instead of the comforting illusion.
Right.
In this world, the red pill perspective argues that society lies to men about how women think, how attraction really works. It claims that while we preach equality, biology dictates a pretty strict hierarchy. So De Bruyns is writing from the perspective that he's revealing a biological reality that modern culture tries to hide.
So the whole premise is that our modern consensus on marriage equality, partnership, shared decisions, it's not just wrong, it's actually destructive.
He argues it's a failed experiment. I mean, his central thesis is that marriage is not primarily about romance or love or companionship.
Not at all.
It's about civilization. It's about order and lineage. He argues that civilization itself is crumbling because men have abdicated their role as rulers of the family.
That's a huge leap. He's connecting, who does the dishes to the fall of Western civilization? Walk me through that logic.
It's a domino effect in his view. He says the nuclear family is the atomic unit of the nation.
Okay.
But it only works if it's patriarchal. If a man has authority at home, you get order. If you have equality, you get constant negotiation, which he sees as chaos. And this is where it gets really political. He claims feminism is actually a tool used by governments to weaken the population.
A tool used by the government. For what?
Control. The argument is if a man is exhausted from fighting domestic power struggles, arguing with his wife, compromising on everything, he has no energy left to challenge political tyranny.
He's distracted.
He's distracted. De Bruyns says a compliant, submissive wife gives a man domestic peace. And that peace is the fuel he needs to go out and build things, change laws, fight for a better society.
So in this framework, an empowered woman is seen as a liability, a distraction preventing men from achieving their mission.
Exactly. It's all transactional. He strips away the romantic stuff completely. He says men provide the infrastructure of survival protection, resources, safety.
And in exchange?
In exchange, women provide obedience, sex, and heirs. He explicitly argues the independent woman is a myth because she's still using the roads, the power grid, the police force, all things he says men built and maintain.
It's a worldview that really just classifies everyone into functional roles, which I guess brings us to his definitions. He defines husband and wife in a way that sounds more like a corporate org chart.
Oh, it's very corporate, or maybe military. A husband, according to De Bruyns, is an agent of God in the state.
Wow.
Yeah, It's a position of governance. He isn't a partner, he's a ruler. His job is to enforce law and order within his flock. The text says a husband is not a plaything.
And the wife.
She is a job function.
A job function.
Yes. He says she's a subordinate partner. And he justifies this with a concept of equity. He says men hold the greater equity because they take on the physical risks and the burden of provision. Therefore, they hold the veto power.
It's just bad business to expect equality when the investment is unequal. That's the logic.
That's the logic.
Okay, so if we accept this internal framework, that marriage is a business and the man is the CEO, then hiring the right employee is the most critical step, and this gets us to his vetting process.
Which is really the core of the book. De Bruyns argues that most modern Western women are just not wife material. He uses terms like concubines and loose women. So for him, vetting isn't a preference, it's a survival mechanism.
And the number one metric on this hiring rubric is chastity.
Virginity is the premium asset, yes, but he has a specific cutoff. He says a body count, the number of past sexual partners over 3, is a huge red flag. maybe even a disqualifier.
Why 3? Is it just an arbitrary number, or does he have a theory behind it?
He relies on something called damage theory, which is really common in these circles. It's a kind of pseudoscientific take on pair bonding. The claim is that when a woman sleeps with a man, her brain releases oxytocin and she forms a permanent emotional bond.
Like a literal biological connection.
Right. And the analogy they always use is a piece of tape. The first time you stick it, the bond is strong. But if you keep ripping it off and sticking it to new things, the tape loses its stick.
So a woman with multiple partners is split 10 ways, as he puts it. She can't fully bond with you.
That's the idea. And this links directly to the alpha widow concept he talks about.
The alpha widow.
The idea is that if a woman has slept with a very high-status man in her past, the best-looking guy in school, wealthy man, whatever, she's permanently imprinted on him. So even if she marries you, she is widowed to that memory. You'll always be compared, and you'll always lose.
So he's vetting for past history, but also for current behavior. Modesty came up a lot, and he frames it as advertising.
That's the key. It's not about being polite. He sees a woman's appearance as a signal of intent. If she wears tight clothes or posts bikini photos on Instagram, he says she is soliciting the male gaze.
Why would a loyal employee be sending out resumes to other companies? That's the logic.
That's exactly it. He calls it advertising for a replacement. It shows she craves external validation, which disqualifies her. And this connects to his absolute ban on male friends.
Right, the no male friends rule.
He argues men only befriend women they're sexually interested in. So any male friend is just an orbiter circling the airport, waiting for clearance to land. He sees it as inviting disaster into your home.
There was one other vetting tool I found really interesting because it wasn't about the woman at all. It was the father factor.
Oh, this is a huge part of his model. He says you must audit her father. Is he strong? Is he the authority? Does the mother serve him? If the dad is passive or the mom runs the show, De Bruyns says run.
Because she hasn't been trained in the hierarchy?
Exactly. He believes you cannot teach a woman to respect male leadership if she didn't see it as a child. He's checking her compliance history. If she rebelled against her father, she'll rebel against you.
And he literally gamifies this with a scorecard.
He does. You add points for things like wants to be a housewife. You subtract points for core interest is pop culture.
That pop culture one is so specific. What's the threat there?
It's about narrative control. If she's obsessed with Hollywood movies or celebrity culture, he says she's being programmed by anti-patriarchal values. She's consuming stories about independence and rebellion. He wants a woman whose reality is grounded in the home, not in a fantasy world.
Okay, so let's say a man follows this guide. He finds a woman who passes all the tests, they get married. Now we move to the management phase. What does the day-to-day operation of this little civilization look like?
It looks like a rigid hierarchy, starting with domestic duties. The text compares a wife to a doctor. Homemaking is her profession.
And he was very specific about the state of the house.
He calls a dirty house an act of aggression.
Aggression. That seems a bit much.
Not in his framework. Remember, the deal is transactional. The man goes out to slay dragons, deal with the world, make money. In return, he is owed a sanctuary.
A place to recharge.
Right. And if he comes home to chaos, the contract is broken. So a clean house isn't a chore. It's the logistical support for his mission.
But then he talks about money, and this was a bit contradictory to me. He admits that in the modern economy, a single income is tough. So he allows the wife to work, but the rules around the money are unique.
Her money is hers, his money is theirs.
Exactly. Usually in these frameworks, the man controls all the money. Why does he let her keep hers?
It's about authority over the essentials. He argues that the person who pays for the infrastructure holds the power. If the wife pays the mortgage, she psychologically feels a claim to authority over the house. He wants to avoid that.
I see.
So he says the man must pay for the assets, the house, the car. Her money is for luxuries, non-essentials.
He'd rather take on more financial stress than share the title of provider.
Absolutely. Authority is the most valuable currency. He actually warns that financial independence makes women ungrateful and harder to lead. The goal is to retire her as soon as you can.
Okay, we have to talk about the hardest part of this text, the conflict resolution, or as he calls it, discipline.
Right.
What happens when the job function isn't performing?
This is where the text moves from just, traditional to what most would consider authoritarian. De Bruyns is explicit. In any dispute, the man is the final authority. There is no agree to disagree.
And he has a system for this.
He outlines a ladder of discipline.
Walk us through the ladder.
Step 1 is a reprimand, a verbal correction. Step 2 is deprivation. This could be sleeping in separate beds, withholding sex, withholding funds for non-essentials. His attention is a reward. You remove it when she misbehaves.
And step 3.
Corporal punishment.
He actually advises hitting your wife.
He defends lightly striking or spanking. Now, he's very careful to distinguish this from abuse. He says never injure, never hit the face. But he explicitly defends physical correction by citing religious texts, arguing that rebellion is childish and can be corrected with methods used on children.
It's completely infantilizing.
It is. But within his logic, if the husband is the agent of God, disobedience is a moral failing. It's a sin. He even lists disobedience as a valid reason for divorce, right up there with adultery.
There's another layer of control here that's about surveillance, the concept of mate guarding.
This comes straight from evolutionary biology. Usually we think of jealousy as insecurity, right? A guy checking his wife's phone is insecure. De Bruyns flips that. He says jealousy is a biological survival mechanism.
Survival of what?
His genetic line. He brings up paternity uncertainty. He cites this statistic, and we have to say this number is highly contested. But he claims up to 30% of children globally are not biologically related to the man who thinks he's the father.
30%. That's a massive number.
It's almost certainly a huge exaggeration, but he uses it to justify total surveillance. He says, because a man can never be 100% sure the child is his, he must enforce strict boundaries. Restrict where she goes, who she's with, track her movements.
So trust isn't a factor.
Trust is a liability. He describes women as impressionable and expert deceivers. You can't trust them to police themselves, so you have to be the guard.
It's such a bleak view of partnership. But then he demands total monogamy from the wife, but suggests the husband should have different rules.
The polygyny argument, yes. He says men are biologically polygynous wired to spread their seed, while women are hypergamous wired to find the one best provider.
So he advises men to take multiple wives.
He says a man should never agree to strict monogamy, and he suggests strategic benefit to it. He says a new wife serves as a check on the first wife's ego.
It's introducing competition into the marriage.
Exactly. If the first wife knows she can be replaced or supplemented, she won't get complacent. And he even brings back the concept of concubinage,
which is a word I haven't heard outside of a history class.
He defines a concubine as a lesser wife. This is for women who don't meet the strict criteria. Maybe she's not a virgin, maybe she's a divorcee.
Why?
She doesn't get the title or the full financial investment, but she is still expected to be sexually loyal.
It just reinforces this idea of women as commodities with different market values.
You have your premium product and your discount product.
So we have this incredibly rigid, high-control framework. I have to imagine there are men reading this and thinking, I can't find a woman like this, and frankly, I don't have the energy to run a domestic prison. What does he say to them?
He has a very clear answer for that. The man alone alternative.
Which is basically just opting out.
Yes.
Yeah.
He says, do not settle. If you can't find a woman who meets these standards, don't marry a modern woman. Instead, focus 100% on your mission, your career, your research, your fitness.
But there's a paradox in that advice, isn't there?
The ultimate paradox. He argues that the man who ignores women to pursue greatness becomes the most attractive thing in the world to women. By removing himself from the market and becoming aloof and successful, his value skyrockets.
So even when you opt out, the goal is still to win the game.
It's always about leverage, even in isolation.
It's a heavy philosophy.
Yeah.
When you step back and look at the whole picture, the damage theory, the discipline ladder, the surveillance, it feels like he's trying to engineer human nature out of the relationship.
He is. He believes men and women are fundamentally different species, not just different genders, but different creatures with opposing biological drives. And he argues happiness lies in accepting these realities as he sees them, rather than fighting for an equality he believes is impossible.
It's like you're trading intimacy for certainty.
That is the perfect way to put it. Modern relationships offer intimacy, but they are messy and uncertain. They can end. This system offers order, stability, and control. But the cost is that you are essentially alone at the top of that pyramid.
You're the ruler, but you're not a partner.
You have subjects, not a soulmate.
And that leads to the question I want to leave with you today. We often hear that relationships take work. But when you look at a model like this, you have to ask yourself, is the work supposed to be building a bridge between two people? Or is the work supposed to be manning the guard tower?
And if you have to guard it that closely, is it actually a home?
That's the deep dive for today. Thanks for exploring the machinery with us.
See you on the next one.